is Dorsey to throw. Yeah! He throws it in the end zone.
Yeah! Off to the races. Can they catch it? Cuts it back. Ohio State
The Ohio State of Mind podcast, hosted by Josh Keatley and Michael Chin.
All right, welcome back into another edition of the Ohio State of Mind podcast. It is Monday, September 23rd, 2024. This is episode number 45 for us, and boys, this was an easy choice as to who this was going to be. Two-time Heisman Trophy winner Archie Griffin. No surprise there, right, gentlemen?
None at all.
All right.
No, man, the guy's got a statue.
Yeah, right.
Two statues.
He's got two statues. Sorry, I forgot to introduce my co-host on the top, on top of me, but above me on the screen. It's Josh Keatley, and our producer is Chris, who is below me. So, yeah, boys, Buckeyes coming off a very solid, but some might say uninspiring dub. But we won't get into it. Josh, go ahead.
Well, you got to mention. Obviously, Archie's the definitive 45, but you have to mention Andy Katzenmoyer. Baby,
Well,
Big Cat.
I mean, the Big Cat was awesome. That is true.
So,
unfortunately, injuries derailed his professional career, but while he was healthy and with the Buckeyes, and like everyone remembers that Missouri game, right? I mean,
oh yeah,
dude was awesome.
What's that
he was awesome.
Who was the guy? He was the guy he destroyed.
That Missouri quarterback.
What's his name? Josh. Is it Josh?
Kobe Jones or something? Yeah, Corby Jones.
Corby Jones.
There it is.
So Andy Katzenmoyer was so good that Greg Belisari was an all Big Ten linebacker. Going back to our Belisari conversation over the weekend, was an all Big Ten middle linebacker. When Andy Katzenmoyer arrived at campus, they moved Greg to outside so that Big Cat could play in the middle. That's how good that dude was, right? That an all Big Ten linebacker. They moved an all Big Ten player to make room for him as a freshman. That's absolutely insane. That's how good he was. So definitely put some respect on that name.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, what he did, and well, in this time at Ohio State, I mean, unfortunately, they didn't win anything. But it's still one hell of a career that Big Cat had, and unfortunately, those injuries derailed his professional career. But
yes,
for those 3 years, he was just absolutely.
He's my favorite 45. Unpopular opinion. He's my favorite 45.
Interesting.
Well, you got to see him. He's probably my favorite 45.
I mean, I got to see him. I got to see him too. But I've met Archie multiple times. He was the assistant athletic director when I was on the baseball team. He traveled with us occasionally. So
oh wow,
I've got I've got a little relationship with Arch. I highly doubt he remembers me. It's been over 20 years since I was on the team. So. That's why for me it's pretty easy because I have a personal relationship with Arch, at least a personal past relationship with Arch, and he's always good to us, always good to the baseball team. We always understood that we don't make money, but we're important to the school. So he always made us feel like we weren't just draining the athletic department's budget, which pretty much we were. But that's neither here nor there. Buckeyes coming off of a 49-14 trouncing of Marshall. Gentlemen, let's talk about our initial thoughts kind of right after the game. We did share some on our text chain, but let's share everyone what we thought of the Buckeyes' performance this past weekend.
Sure. Mike, you want to go first, or Chris, you want to go first, or how you guys want to do this?
Chris, why don't you go first? I've been talking.
Okay, too easy. Hey, 49. I will quote Will Howard on this one, and he said in the presser, says no one's going to complain about a 49-14 win, but hey, Will, welcome to Columbus. Okay,
I will.
welcome to Columbus. I'll get the bad out of the way. And this isn't even really bad, I'd say. Honestly, I'm gonna give respect to Stone Earl. I think he was a gamer. I think he had potential. I think he was fairly accurate.
Yep.
And I would say, let's be honest, I think he is a better quarterback in which we will see from a better quarterback than we'll see out of Iowa. I think he's a better quarterback than we'll see out of Michigan, obviously. I don't know.
You,
36 passing yards doesn't inspire you, Chris?
I'm uninspired.
I would not fight against that statement.
Yeah. I think he was a gamer. I think he was good. He might have, if he would have stayed in, he might have made some more plays. I think the noon kickoff maybe was an adjustment for the Buckeyes defense. Definitely wasn't for the offense, but Buckeyes defense, I mean, they needed to get woke up a little bit there. Early on, I think Jim Knowles, he didn't seem didn't really have a sense of urgency to adjust anything, which, I mean, hey, he's Jim Knowles and he's the defensive coordinator of the Ohio State Buckeyes. He could simply say, hey, I'm not alarmed. I'm not about to change anything. I'm just going to let my athletes give all my athletes the chance to be athletes, and it was slow going. And we didn't see, we had a desire for a more intense pass rush. But I will say this, I looked it up. Marshall had 52 dropbacks. 36 of those 52 were either a one-step or a no-step passing attempt. So let's be real. We're clamoring for no step. We're talking shotgun. I know you're looking at me wild there.
Well,
but we want to see a pass rush, absolutely. But hey, they're getting the ball out of the hands quick, right? But it is what it is. That, and of course, my other real negative was we're all probably going to spend time on the special teams, but I listened to Bobby Carpenter's podcast today, and he had Lathan Ransom on there, and he came out and said, he's like, yeah, man, they got me on that touchdown pass. He caught me with a move, and I was standing there flat-footed, and if we're even, he's leaving, and I'm caught flat-footed, and he just got me. I was like, okay, well, cool. He's like, he couldn't affirm or deny that his foot was in bounds on that touchdown, that last touchdown Marshall scored, but hey, 49-14 is a win. You're still undefeated. You're still sitting in the top 5. I'm not going to complain. I'm not going to complain that much. But again, we'll touch. I'm not even going to touch special teams because I know you two. I'll let you guys just run wild with it. Like both you, Josh, and Mike said last week, hey, we opened up the playbook, but we didn't open up the playbook to anything that's otherworldly. We saw an awesome super counter. We saw a nice little inside reverse that made that. I'm sure that got. I know it got the hairs up off my arm. I hope it did with you guys as well. 4 touchdowns of 40+ yards. We had 68, 86, 40, 53 big time scores. Quinshawn Judkins. It's like the Billy Madison movie. Man, I'm glad I called that guy because he looked awesome. There's no question about it. Hey, conference play starts. We got a lot to clean up, and the competition's obviously only going to get bigger. What do you think, Mike, Josh?
I actually think Marshall's. I actually think Marshall, although their record won't indicate it, I think they're a pretty good team. I think we saw a team that comes out with a really good game plan. Their head coach is a former Alabama assistant. Like they're going to game plan well. Do they have the athletes and skill position players to defeat an Ohio State type of team? No, they don't. Clearly, they don't. But I thought their game plan was really good. They wanted to minimize the Ohio State pass rush, which I think they did really well. I think that Tyleik Williams missing the game made a big impact. Going into kind of what we talked about last week with the bye, they looked rusty, right? I don't like early buys. I really don't. No. I like buys after 6-7 weeks. A week 3 buy just, or I'm sorry, a week 4 buy. Just like it just doesn't. I don't like that. And that goes back to the athletic director and scheduling these games. And you know, Gene Smith, I think Gene Smith probably had a hand in this. I don't, I can't,
It's hard to
obviously
tell.
he's retired, right? He's retired, but like
Well,
usually
remember,
football schedules are significantly in advance. They're scheduled in advance. Like, we know we might not know what the Big Ten schedule is for next year, but we have a general idea of who our out of conference is, right? So
well,
like,
yeah,
I'm
I don't
going
want to.
I'm going to put this on Gene Smith.
Yeah, I knew
The
you were
bye
going
week.
to. We and you and I both, we're you and I, if there's one thing that we have agreed on, we've both kind of been on the, everybody's like, oh, Gene Smith, yeah, and Michael and I have kind of since the beginning kind of been like, and I do agree with you there. He definitely played a role in this. At the same time, I can't blame him fully for this because the conference realignment kind of screwed up the schedule.
Sure.
Remember, we were supposed to have Washington scheduled, and then we couldn't have Washington. Then we had to backfill with Marshall. It was just kind of, I don't know, man. I don't know who's at fault really.
Well,
I'm
I
sorry,
mean, it's more about
no.
no, Josh, that's okay. It's more about the bye week. It's not about necessarily scheduling Marshall. It's more about where the bye week was placed.
I agree 100%.
And like, I just don't like it because you want to get into a groove early on in the season. You want to get a couple games under your belt, and then you go 2-3 games, and then boom, a bye. And like this past weekend, like when you look across the country, Georgia takes on Alabama this weekend. Georgia and Alabama each had bye weeks this week. Like, that's good scheduling in my eyes. It's like, hey, this is like arguably the biggest game of the year. Like, let's rest up our players, get an extra week of, breaking down film and game planning. And that to me makes a ton of sense. Obviously, we wouldn't be able to ever do that, going up against Michigan. But, having bye weeks strategically placed in your schedule, I think it does matter. And I think we saw the ramifications of that in this game. Although I'm not I'm not particularly unhappy with their performance. I know that, everyone's like, oh, 49-14, they didn't cover the spread. Like, you know what, that's something that I'm not overtly concerned about. What I wanted to see was a little bit of improvement. Again, part of this was, the improvement on the offensive line, with Donovan Jackson coming back. Just look at the rushing yards. I mean, that alone tells you how significant he is on that offensive line. I thought that they just looked better. I like, that's something that now that I'm able to do a little bit more, because I'm not covering the games, I'm able to watch the offensive line a little bit more. And, this game was the first game where I felt fairly comfortable about their performance, and I didn't see a lot of errors. Obviously they're going to have errors, but I didn't see a lot of them. Defense gave up a couple touchdowns, which they haven't done in the previous 2 games, which, at the end of the day, they're going to give up touchdowns. It is what it is. I'd rather see them give up touchdowns against Marshall than, the Big Ten teams, Penn State, Michigan, obviously. So if they want to get it out of the way, they're going to give up more touchdowns too. And Marshall had a really, really good game plan. Let's be real here. Their wide receiver, what's his name?
Fitzpatrick.
The dude, the tall dude with dreads, Fitzpatrick. That guy's gonna play in the NFL, like hands down. He made a spectacular catch in this game where I was just, and I texted the chain. I was like, "There's no way in hell that this guy can continue to make these kind of plays." And then you guys reminded me that he made that crazy one-handed catch earlier on in the season, and I was like, "Oh, that's that dude, huh?"
Yeah.
And if this guy's consistently making those kind of catches, this guy's playing in the NFL. NFL scouts are seeing that, because games like this, they're not only scouting Ohio State players. They're saying like, hey, maybe there's a guy or two on the other side that can help us out. He's going to help out an NFL team. He's going to be drafted. Now, will he go high? I don't know. I don't know enough about him to say like, yeah, that's a bona fide first-round draft pick. But will he get drafted? 100%. The size, the speed, the hands, you can't really teach some of that. You can teach speed, but you can't teach how big he is. Yeah. He does a really good job with his body and kind of shielding off of defenders, which is why I thought that the Ohio State defensive backs looked average at best, and to me, you look at some of what they did and some of what they didn't do. Obviously, we would have liked to, see a 70-0 score, right?
Right.
But that's not going to be the case all the time, especially with the new clock rules, with the running clock as opposed to stopping it at first downs. You don't get as many possessions. But overall, I thought the offense looked really good. I love the RPO. You guys didn't talk about that earlier. They ran RPO multiple times, and it was perfect. It is exactly the kind of like little nuances that are starting to be added to the offense. And especially with Will Howard being back there, he brings that added element of running the ball. Now, he didn't run the ball a lot in this game because he didn't need to. He look at the stats. He was 60. That's 80%. He did throw a pick, and I do question his arm strength every once in a while, but I think it's more about making the decision with throw than the arm strength, because he's short-armed a couple of throws, and I think he knows that. He's like kind of like the 1-2 weeks ago to Jeremiah Smith, where he had him open and he just floated that ball, right? And afterwards, he pretty much mouthed to himself like, "Throw the damn ball," right?
Yeah.
Like that was the same situation this week. He was short on that one ball when all he had to do was just throw it over, right? Throw it into the corner. If your receiver doesn't get it, it's fine because it's incompletion. You move on to the next play. But when you throw it short, you put your offensive players in a really bad position. That's what ended up with the pick. So there's good, there's bad. I would say that this is probably like a B performance from the Buckeyes, but a B performance is going to come out with this type of margin of victory. I think that's pretty damn good.
Yeah, I'm not as I'm clearly not as happy as you guys are. I would classify this as another hand job game, right? This is very comparable to Akron. I'm not hitting the panic button. I'm not mad. There's good things, there's bad things. I think that the good things and the bad things equal out, right? If I was giving a grade on it, probably a C. I think that Marshall and Western Michigan are on the same tier as me. So the fact that the defense came out so slow and sleepy, you use the word rusty. Rusty's fine. I'll use the word sleepy. Like it bothered me. I think one of the issues, I do agree with you about the issue with the bye week. The issue with the bye week about having it the week before Marshall is that Ohio State didn't use it to prep for Marshall. Ohio State used it to fine-tune things, right? So that might have played a role here. Again, I'm panicking, right? I can make excuses for every bad thing that I have on my list, but there are bad things on my list, and 2 weeks ago there was no bad things. Will Howard played a really great game. I think he completed 80% of his passes. He didn't make any bad decisions except for that pass that got intercepted. That was a bad decision. Jeremiah Smith wasn't open, and even if that he was trying to force the ball to Jeremiah, which is perftly fine. Jeremiah's got 50-50 ball skills. He can do that. He underthrew it by
70-30.
Whatever. We'll never know because Will Howard, this is a legitimate concern. Can Will Howard even make that throw? Again, when I say legitimate concern, I mean, I don't know if he's capable of making that throw, but that kind of throw is not what's going to win the national championship. Sure. What is going to win them a national championship is him having his head on his shoulders, his athleticism to get out of trouble, right? So again, not pressing the panic button, but that is a concern. Running backs, I think they played a perfect game. Offensive line, Josh Simmons and Donovan Jackson were absolutely insane. All those big runs that we were talking about.
The left side of the line is awesome. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
100%.
Seth McLaughlin, absolutely great game. He had multiple plays going up to the second level, doing what he needs to do. Right guard is going to be fun to watch because now we have a legitimate battle. Tegra Shabula started the game, but they were working in Austin Several. And both of those guys, I think Tegra Shabula had a better game, but both of those guys are going to be very competent. And it's not a question as to whether, we don't know who's going to play here because they both suck. Austin, we talked about it. Every week, Austin looked great on that left side when Donovan Jackson was out. They are giving him an opportunity to see if he can beat out Tegra Shabula. I don't think it happens, but that's awesome that we have that option there. Josh Fryer didn't play well. Mike Green worked him like he worked him. We talked about, Marshall had a 0-step drop or getting rid of the ball. And all those things are true, Chris. I'm not saying you're wrong, but that Mike Green, he had that spin move. You show me a spin move highlight that JTT or Jack Sawyer's had. You show me a move where they're moving that quick. You can't fucking do it, right? That's an issue to me. That's upsetting to me. And it's upsetting to me that Josh Fryer got worked by that guy. That was the major highlight, but that guy was beating Josh Fryer. And I was sitting next to an NFL scout throughout that game, talking the entire game. And he did say that Mike Green was an NFL player. He actually said that the
Believe
only
it.
guy he's
Yeah.
looking at Marshall was Mike Green. So that is, again, pros and cons, right? I'm not pressing the panic button because the guy next to me, whose job is to identify NFL talent, is telling me if that guy's going to play in the NFL. Okay, cool. But it's still upsetting because he got his ass beat, right? The tight ends. Tight ends didn't look good again. Jelani Thurman had another, I can't remember if it was a drop or just a whiff. He didn't look good. There was a pin and pull. I can't remember if it was, I think it was Kazmarek that was there on the short pitch to the outside. Kazmarek whiffed. Luckily, Josh Simmons is so good. He was able to block two guys basically. But that's not cool. That's not what you want, right? Against a better team that Josh Simmons isn't going to be able to do that. He's not going to be able to save the day like that. Wide receivers played great. I don't really have any issues, right? They're still very young. You're seeing flashes. Let's move on to the defensive line. Defensive line, I kind of covered already. They played pitiful. I know that we again, pros and cons. Pros, I know that they got rid of the ball quickly. Cons, I don't care. It's Marshall. That Marshall offensive line's bad. That Marshall offensive line's real bad. They had dudes that were not that much taller than me on that offensive line, guys. That was really bad. They should have really got a – and I know that Tyleik Williams was out. Again, I understand that. We'll put that in the pro-com. I'm not going to put that press the panic button. But at the beginning of the year, I said this is the best defensive line in college football. And the big reason I said that is because I thought that we had a strong two-deep. I thought it was going to be interchangeable. And it's not. Hero Kanu sucked. He got moved off the ball. They got rid of him, basically. They put Tywan Malone in for all the critical downs.
Who had a good game.
Malone played
He had
much
a good
better.
game.
Yeah, but that's still close because we all like Hero Kanu. I mean, we've talked about Hero Kanu a couple times in the show, and I feel like we all were relatively high on him. And he got pushed around by a bad Marshall offensive line. That's not good. The linebackers didn't look good again. Cody Simon looked okay. Sonny Styles looked lost again. CJ Hill was lost again. That's upsetting. The defensive backs looked okay. Lathan Ransom let that touchdown. I know that you like Christian Fitzpatrick. He might get drafted, but this guy played. This is not a guy who came out of nowhere in his real. This is not a T.Y. Hilton situation. This is not a Randy Moss situation. This is not. I'm trying to think of another small school. Martin Nance at Miami, Ohio. This guy was at Michigan State last year. He had 2 receptions against Ohio State last year. He transferred out of Michigan State because he couldn't play at Michigan State. He can't. He's slow. He runs a 4.56. He catches the ball like a wild man, and he's big. He's about 6'4", and I saw him up in person. He's every bit of 6'4". So I agree. He's got great hands clearly, and he's tall. But there's going to be much better wide receivers in the Big Ten. Oregon's going to have both. Oregon's going to have 3 guys better than him. Indiana's going to have 3 guys better than him. You know what I mean? Nebraska is going to have guys, but this guy, if this is like, if the big takeaway is Christian Fitzpatrick is good, we're in trouble. Does that make sense? And again, the defensive backs played well, but it's a little inexcusable. Marshall is on the same tier as Western Michigan. Marshall's not going to win the Sun Belt. I agree with you. I like Huff. I think Marshall's a tough team. Marshall is not a joke. They're not Akron. They're a very good team. They're not going to be in the play to win the Sun Belt. They're not. Matter of fact, they played Western Michigan this weekend, so this will be really interesting to figure that out. The special teams is also horrible. We don't really have to talk about. You can't kick the ball out of the bounds 3 times. You can't do that. Brandon Ennis, I know the sun was in his eyes. Again, I'm not pressing the panic button. Shit happens, but he dropped that punt. If that was a good team, and they were lined up correct, we would have lost that fucking game. That's the kind of shit. It's 49-14, but that's the kind of game.
It was 14-7 when that happened.
Yeah.
In the second
and against
quarter.
Oregon, that's a momentum. That just destroys your momentum. So I understand it was 49-14. It was very impressive, but Marshall had over 250 yards of offense, and there was a lot of errors where I think that if they played like that against Oregon, they lose. That's my concern with this game. Luckily for us, it's not Oregon, but that's kind of my takeaway.
Right. Yeah. No, I mean, I do think we should touch on the kicking game a little bit. And the reason being, and I just want to point out something, and
they
I don't know if this is, they did, right?
They brought out Austin Snyder later on, so
right.
Good news.
So I was reading on Bucknuts, the Ohio State 247 Sports, their website, and I was reading because they do insider information, which you have to pay for pretty much, right? So that's pretty much all I read on there. And they went over today about what was going on with the Ohio State kicking. First off, I don't know if this is true, and I have not heard of this, Is there a kicking coach on staff?
No.
Okay.
No, they got rid of
So
it.
that's clearly a problem. And then on top of that, from what they have said, is that they never had a kicking coach either. It was a former player that they asked, and he said that his kicking coach was his sister. So that tells me that it's been a long time, probably well overdue, for Ohio State to bring a specialist in there, put him on staff, and especially with these new rules about having pretty much as many coaches as you want.
Yeah.
Like, why not? Like, what's the deal here? Clearly, there's an issue. And he literally said in that when they asked him, he said, I saw the issue in all three of those kicks. I could fix it in 10 minutes.
Remember, they did have a kicking coach. That you're talking about a special teams coordinator. There's no such thing as a kickers coach. It's a special teams coordinator, and they fired him because he sucked.
I guess.
So they, I mean, I'm with you. Maybe if this persists,
does that like, I don't know the specific roles of a special teams coach, but would it, like, it's more like scheme, isn't it?
Well,
like
I can walk you
and
I would think so.
I don't play at Ohio State, but I can walk you through what our special teams guy did.
Please do.
At Valpo, right? Because your special team. Remember too, the rest of your special teams are all guys that are on offense and defense. So if you have a 3-hour practice, I don't know, 2.5 hours, 10 of your guys on that special teams plays aren't even fucking with you. So you're only with the kicker, the punter, and an Ohio State situation, which is not every college, by the way, but in Ohio State situation, you get the long snapper as well. So that's all he's dealing with. That's all Parker Fleming dealt with. Now, if you're making the argument like they need to go out and get a new special teams coordinator, cool. I'm with you. That's cool. If this
I'm
problem
just saying
persists,
more of a kicking specialist.
That's not a thing. That's never. I mean, I guess you could. I guess
he's talking more of the art of kicking itself.
Yes.
You could do that, but I don't. I think even if you scoured the top 25 teams,
bring Tom Tupa back in as like a senior analyst or some shit.
Love that.
I'd be cool. I'd be cool with that. I'd be cool with that.
Like, that's what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about hiring a special teams coach. I'm talking about like bringing someone in who has the experience, who's done it, who's potentially a former Buckeye, who gets it.
I'm cool. I'm cool with that. But that I'm cool with that. If the problem persists, they should do that. I just want to point out the fact that is not what they are doing is not abnormal. A matter of fact, a college team having a special teams coordinator is abnormal. Most of the time, your special teams coordinator is like the defensive backs coach, the defensive coordinator that's doing it. Usually, when you come out the kickers and punters and long snappers, say, go over there, do your drills. I'm going to go over here, do my thing. Most teams don't have a special teams coordinator. That's why we don't have one right now, is because that was kind of the thought process. Like, nah, dude, we'd rather have Laurinaitis. Most of them don't. That's not a super common thing.
That's good to know.
But you could. I'm not saying you can't, but I do think that's probably. I mean, Urban Meyer was the special teams coach when he was here. You know what I mean? I think Tressel was pretty much the guy who ran the show here too, which is probably the last time that our special. What?
I said naturally it had to have been Tress.
Yeah, right.
And that's probably the last time the special teams was pretty much flawless, right? Was Tressel?
Yeah. Oh,
I don't remember being bad under Meyer either, but the special teams was. I mean, you had.
They didn't. They didn't really return anything, but they blocked plenty of field goals and punts and with.
Well, that was also. But he also had Ted Ginn and Santonio Holmes. Both those guys were pretty effective returning it. You know what I mean? More so than
I was talking about Urban, but no. I mean, for hell, I think Tony Gonzalez even brought a couple back. When he was playing for Tressel. So I mean, Tressel understood. Trussel's favorite play is the punt. So I mean, it makes sense as to why he would be able to, scheme well for that. But yeah, I just want to see just maybe, like a title for a guy that just specifically works with the kickers and the punters who just gets it. I think that would enhance what we're. Yeah, I mean, I don't want to, just I don't know what are they like? Maybe I don't know what they would call it. Like senior analyst was just kind of like the first thing that just popped into my head, just as like a title, So it's not an actual coach. So I mean, I think that would make a lot of sense. But any last comments, gentlemen, on this weekend's game?
It is interesting that Quinshon Judkins, that 86-yard run is the third longest run in Ohio State history, tied with J.T. Barrett. Okay.
Joe
Number
Thomas.
2, who?
Joe Thomas, JT.
Joe Thomas, yeah. So it also should be noted that the man with, I believe, I can't remember. I think he still has the longest one in Ohio State history, is Morris Bradshaw. And listeners might be interested to hear, since this is episode number 45 in honor of Archie Griffin, Morris Bradshaw was the running back before Archie Griffin got there. Morris Bradshaw was an all-conference running back and accomplished that run before Archie Griffin got there. Archie Griffin was so good that Woody Hayes identified that, moved Morris Bradshaw out to wide receiver. Morris Bradshaw went on to have a long NFL career, a professional football career with the Oakland Raiders and the Oakland Invaders of the USFL. So just a little fun fact that's how good Archie was, that they moved the guy away.
Yeah, I think it was pretty good. All right. We got Michigan State on tap this weekend. The Buckeyes are once again heavy favorites going into this one. 3 touchdowns and a field goal plus a point. So yeah, I mean, gentlemen, this on paper looks like the Buckeyes should feast, especially the defensive backs. Aiden Childs has been just atrocious with his throws. I think he's 8 picks already.
Yeah,
it is yeah, right. It's a bad number.
I had it 7-7 as of this morning.
7-7. Okay. Yeah. I that was just off the top of my head. I haven't quite dug deep into the Spartans, but I know he's thrown a lot. In
his defense, this Michigan State offensive line is
bad.
I mean, it's not.
Yeah, I haven't seen a game. I haven't seen any of their. Actually, I watched a little bit of the BC game and watched a little bit of the Maryland game as well. But
they played really well against BC. The thing about Michigan State's offense is bad. That's not the thing to look out for. Well, I apologize. I didn't mean to cut you off. I'll let you finish. I'm sorry.
No, you're fine. But I just think that the Buckeyes are gonna, as long as the Buckeyes take care of the ball, they're gonna turn the ball over multiple times on Childs. They should have pretty damn good day in the secondary. He is athletic, so it might be tough to take him down, rack up the sack numbers. But I'm not super concerned about this weekend. I think that the Buckeyes are going to handle their business.
Chris,
Buckeyes go to East Lansing. Aiden Childs, I mean, he was touted up to be something big. It hadn't been that. I think his receivers have let him down a good bit. I think
they're bad too.
Yeah, they're bad too.
He could have used Christian Fitzpatrick. They fucked up.
Right.
Yeah,
but with Ohio State by 25 again, I want to see how they come out, how they start, being a night game, being on the road. Obviously, it's the first look of them going anywhere other than the Horseshoe. But Ohio State with 25 points, I'm going to go ahead and go with Aiden Childs on this one. And oh no, I hit the wrong one.
I like that one though.
I'm going to go with Aiden Childs on this one.
Like I said before, if you bet, take the over.
I'm going to take the over.
Take the over.
I think he's right.
There it is. Thank you, Chris.
He's right there.
Appreciate that. We asked for it last week and we got it. Thank you. That was
So yeah, the Michigan State offense is pretty pathetic. I don't really know if it's a whole lot better than Marshall's offense. It's bad. Aiden Childs does not look good. A lot of that's not his fault though. The Michigan State offensive line is clearly their weak link. They're really bad. Jaron Glover is not a bad receiver. He's their speedster, young guy, deep threat. He has a couple highlight reel passes, but he's not great. And he's kind of the only one. They also had the tight end from Oregon State that followed them. Valiant, he has kind of underwhelmed.
Yes.
But again, I think there's just not, the offensive line just blows. There's not enough time. Matter of fact, the offensive line is so bad, which is funny. That's kind of what Marshall did too. We talked about that. I'm not going to go back to the Marshall thing, but you'll see a lot of times these teams with really, really bad offensive lines, they're not able to use their speed back. Nathan Carter, to me, is the far better running back in the Michigan State backfield, but he's not a between the tackles guy. He's a gadget passing, screen, receiver type, and they don't have enough time to allow those long. He can't run between the tackles. So K'Ron Lynch Adams is their stud running back. He's really not bad. He's actually a pretty good running back. This is a guy that almost came to Ohio State. Ohio State didn't want him. This is the transfer from Massachusetts, from Ohio, that you guys all remember. He spent a brief time with Rutgers.
Yeah.
Started at all 3 spots. He's got 2,000-yard seasons under his belt. He's not bad, but the Michigan State offense, like I said, it's not a real concern. What is a concern is the defense. Cal Haladay is a really good linebacker. He's one of the best linebackers in the country. He's not going to get fooled by RPOs. He's not going to get lost. So this is going to be a real test for Will Howard. This is going to be a real test for Quinshon Judkins and a real test for Travion Henderson, because this guy's not going to miss tackles. And all their linebackers are pretty good. Jordan Turner's the transfer from Wisconsin, and as Chris has pointed out here, he's the leading tackler. Jordan Hall was a former 4-star recruit, borderline 5-star recruit that went to Michigan State, stuck it out there, and he sees a lot of time. They thought that he was going to be the opposite starter other than Holiday before Turner really turned it up a notch. And they have another transfer from Old Dominion and Wayne Matthews, who's also seen a lot of time. So they got a rotation of 4 linebackers that are really, really good, maybe the best in the Big Ten. So and their defensive line is not bad, and their defensive backs aren't bad. So it's a pretty defensively sound football team. So that's going to be where the real test is for Ohio State. But I'm with you guys. If I had to bet it, I would take Ohio State given 25. I'd probably be more likely to take the over, because I could see a similar situation where they get a couple backdoor touchdowns or whatever. So we're all on Ohio State given 25.
Yeah.
Yep.
It does scare me a little bit that this is a primetime game at East Lansing, which is not an easy place to play historically. And this will be the first time Will Howard is in a Big Ten environment in prime time away. So, same with Jeremiah Smith. Could we see butterflies? I'm not going to press the panic button if we do, but we could see butterflies.
I can see that.
Let me ask you this. You watched the Kansas State and BYU game. Do you think how do you think Will Howard would have held up in place of Avery Johnson in that BYU territory this last week?
Mike, you want to take this one first?
Well, first off, they have a Jewish quarterback, which
Okay.
I saw that online. I was like, is this
BYU has a Jewish quarterback?
Yes, their quarterback is Jewish. I thought that was very interesting, first off, because it's a Mormon school, and I just kind of assumed that everyone who goes there is Mormon, has to go on a mission, do all of that.
Did not know that. Okay.
But yes, he is Jewish, which very much surprised me. But anyways, it's fun fact there about BYU. I watched the game. I watched the majority of the game. I did fall asleep because, being a parent and having to go to a wedding after you work a game is a lot of work. I did watch some of it though, and I just think that everyone was, a lot of K-State fans were like, yeah, Avery Johnson's so much better than Will Howard, so much better than Will Howard. This is the experience factor that's going to come in. Will Howard's got 3 years of experience playing at this level. He's won a Big 12 championship. I don't think that this game is going to be bigger than he'll be able to handle. So that's my answer to your question.
Okay.
I agree with that. There's really not. I agree with that 100%. Will Howard's best trait, we've said this since January, his best trait is he's one of the most intelligent quarterbacks in college football. The dude doesn't make a mistake. He just rarely does. Avery Johnson throws up a yellow ball. I'm not saying Avery Johnson is worse. I personally think Will Howard is better, but I'm going to be biased. I know a lot of people say that Avery Johnson is a better quarterback, including Kirk Herbstreit, and that's fine. They're allowed to think that. Avery Johnson is a really fun quarterback to watch, and they're Kansas State, when they're at home and when they're rolling, they're a hard team to beat. I would not feel comfortable with Ohio State rolling into Manhattan. I would not feel comfortable with that. That's how good that they can be. But he went away in Provo, which is a nasty place to play, and he couldn't handle it. Will Howard would have. Well, I think he would have. But again, I'm biased, so who knows?
Hey,
We're going to find out. We're going to find out because Will Howard, we're also saying that, but Will Howard has played 3 games. All of his games have been home in the friendly confines of Ohio Stadium against piss poor opponents, right?
Sure.
All 3 opponents were non-Power 5 opponents, and none of them are going to compete for conference championships in their pitiful conference. So just throwing that out there. So
okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Just wanted
There's
Just put
definitely a
that back up.
possibility. I don't think you could shut the door on him not coming out with a little bit of nerves. Like Josh is saying, I think there's a possibility. I definitely agree with that. I don't see anything wrong about that statement.
Agreed.
And if he does,
Agreed.
it's okay.
He's got enough supporting a cast around him.
Yeah, all
on
you gotta
both
do
the
is
offensive.
throw a 5-yard hitch to Emeka, throw a 5-yard hitch
Oh,
to Jeremiah.
I allude,
80 yards later, like, hey,
Yeah.
touchdown.
I would assume that Josh is alluding to some of those backdoor points. I mean, he's gonna get some points from the defense, hopefully, as well. Hopefully, with Aiden Childs with 7 picks already on the season.
Yeah.
Maybe.
It's just Jonathan Smith is a very momentum-driven coach. I don't think that John Smith is a bad coach. The best coach that we've probably seen is Moorhead from Akron, but the talent gap was so big that there's nobody even talking about it. Jonathan Smith, I think, is a better coach than like Charles Huff, and he has more talent. So it wouldn't surprise me if Jonathan Smith gathered his team up for the last 2 minutes and scored a touchdown to make it. It's a big spread. 25 points is the largest spread in the Big Ten.
52-14.
Yeah.
Or, like 28-7, right? That's would that be surprising, right? I don't know.
Yes. If the Buckeyes only scored 28, if the Buckeyes only scored 28 points, I'd be very surprised.
Okay. Let me give it. You're right. Let me give it better.
35-14. 35-14. I'd be okay with that. It'd be disappointing. 35.
There you go. Yeah. Okay.
But,
I'd rather see
a 42. That means they held them down to a degree.
Yeah.
Right.
Whatever. You get my point.
Yeah. No, I get it.
All right. So I keep us on time. Chimed in some of my favorite Buckeye tweets of the week, gentlemen. Started off, hey, Sydney Sweeney, me too, girl.
Yeah.
Okay. Leaked the whereabouts of the Ohio State defense there in that first quarter. They were happened to be at Tudor's Biscuit World.
Yes. Filling up NIL style. Unlimited, baby.
Woody Hayes seeing that Ohio State lined up for a wing tee and scored a touchdown out of it.
That's a good one.
We didn't talk about that enough. We didn't talk about the innovation that Chip Kelly.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I touched on it a little bit with the RPO, but I called that wing tee too. I said, you guys, I said, do not be surprised to see both of them back there with a fullback or a tight end, and that's exactly what happened.
You called the wing tee. Josh called like a jet sweep. We got a nice reverse. We got that super awesome that super counter. I love that.
Yeah.
What else we got? Once again, I'm asking for you not to kick the ball out of bounds, and obviously, when the ball stays in bounds, I can't get gifts to work on StreamYard. I wish I could. But,
that's a good one. Though. I think we all know that Wedding Crashers one.
Yeah. Josh, you can take this one. You love this one.
Oh, dude, this was funny. Tim May asked, "Wow, listen, did you get hit harder from behind, or did you get hit harder from the front?" And Will Howard goes, "Pause, pause." It was so good, dude. And I don't think Tim May got it at first.
Were you there when that happened?
Yeah, dude. Yeah, nice. I stumbled on. It was lucky enough for me. It was
because that was in the locker room, right?
No. That was at the press. That was at the presser. It was enough time after
they brought him out. Oh, okay.
Yeah. It was enough time after the Charles Huff one for me to stumble on over.
And maybe a little unrelated, but let's check out Gus Johnson's drip on this one. Look at him.
It's good, dude. Good looking dude.
Gus knows what's up.
Gus is flung.
Gus has had some all-time Ohio State calls over the last 5 years too.
Without
question.
He
great announcer, love him to death. But when he wouldn't stop talking about how J.K. Dobbins was almost aborted.
Oh God, yes! During the Michigan game, the best game of his career.
You gotta move on from this.
Yeah, that was
J.K. Dobbins. His mama was aborted him. Oh, okay. Fun fact.
Yeah.
No, it was something along the lines like, spoke to J.K. Dobbins' mom last night, and she said she didn't know she wanted to keep the baby, but look at him now.
Look at him now.
After 4 touchdowns in the big house. God damn it, Gus Johnson. All right, Big Ten. Big Ten.
All right. So let's go. Okay, so Friday night, Washington heads to Piscataway, New Jersey to take on the Rutgers Scarlet Knights. Rutgers is favored by 2.5. Michael, what's your thoughts?
This one's tough. I think that both teams are like right on par there. I think they're pretty equal. What we've seen early on in the season, I think that this is going to be one of the more even matchups of the day that you're going to see. I'm gonna take the home team. I think that they'll eke it out. I think it'll be by 3-7. So that means that they cover.
Ooh. 3
Okay,
to
so
7.
you're gonna take Rutgers, given the 2.5.
Yeah, 2.5.
Okay.
Yeah, like I said, I think they win between 3 and 7. It's a one possession
Cool.
thing.
Cool. Chris, where you at?
I'm in the same ballpark. I want to up it a little bit more. I think there's a little bit more offensive power in this one. Rutgers covers with the 2.5. Rutgers wins 21-17.
All right. So I do want to go over the stats from last week. Chris, you went 5-7. I went 7-5, and Mike, you went 6-6. So the total records for the year so far, Chris, you're at 29, 28-1. I am at 32, 25-1, and Mike, you are at 29, 28-1. So they're
okay.
Just for everybody
above 500. I'll take that. I'm not a gambler, so I will take that.
That's right. So I agree with you guys, dude. Rutgers looks tough. They both looked really good last week, but I have a tendency to overrate Northwestern. So I need to self-reflect there. I am going to take Rutgers. Rutgers went out there, and I know the score was kind of misleading, but Chris, you and I were talking about this game. Rutgers pretty much dominated Virginia Tech. If it wasn't for a couple stupid things, it kind of fell apart in the second half. So I'm with you guys. I'm gonna take Rutgers, and that was at Virginia Tech, by the way. That was at Blacksburg. You give me Washington traveling across the country in prime time. Done. All right, next game. Minnesota travels to Ann Arbor, Michigan, to take on the Michigan Wolverines, who are favored by 9.5 points. Chris, where are you at?
I mean, how many yards? 36? Is that the magic number for Orgy? 36. My God. But you know what? I'll be honest with you. The defense is elite. And the offensive line is only going to get better. You saw the offensive line get better during that game as well. So, I mean, Sharon Moore and his moniker of just playing Michigan football, they're going to run the ball. They're going to run the ball. I mean, this could be a quick game with both Michigan running the ball and Minnesota. Give me Michigan. Give me the points.
Yeah, unfortunately.
So when you say give me the points, you mean you're gonna give the points, right?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay. Mike, where you at?
I think we watched a completely different Michigan team between Texas and then USC. I think they got their confidence back. Their running game looks significantly different and better. As you mentioned, Chris, the offensive line was opening more holes. Orgy throws for nothing. They still win. I think did Will Johnson ever pick 6 again in this one? Yeah. Dude's awesome. He's elite too. And I think they're starting to get their groove. They're starting to get their identity. And I think a couple of teams are going to pay for that. I still don't think that they're going to win. Some of the other bigger games. I think they exposed USC significantly in the game. But I'm going to take Michigan. I think they win by like 21.
All right, I'm with you guys. This one's it's not tough. It's only tough because Michigan is coming off such a big win, and Minnesota's coming off such an ugly loss. You would think that there'd be a little bit more, oomph. But I got to ride with Michigan with you guys. Max Brosmer from Minnesota has not been great. As much as I loved him, as much as I hyped him up preseason, he's been a very average quarterback for Minnesota. He's not been able to throw guys. He doesn't have a big arm. He can't go downfield. So Michigan's defense should be able to really stack the box, stop Darius Taylor, man up with these receivers, and have Alex Orgy create enough chaos to have this game split apart. There's just not enough there. And the Minnesota defense is not good. Iowa put a beating on them. Just for the record, too, your boy only one to take Minnesota last week. So it should be, or I'm the only one to take Michigan last week. So it should be noted. Also, you jabrones took Minnesota, and I was the only one to take Iowa. So just throwing that out there. So I feel a little bit like my up and coming is happening with Michigan. That's another reason why I'm scared to take Michigan again. I mean, how many times can I be right with that Michigan? Not many. All right, so let's rock on to the next one. Oh, your order's different than mine. That's all right. Let's go here. I'm gonna skip down. I'm gonna jump down to Maryland because that's my order. Maryland travels to Indiana. Indiana is favored by 7 whole points. Mike, where you at?
Oh boy, I think this spread is wrong and significantly. I think the Hoosiers are going to work Maryland. They're one of the highest scoring teams in the country, and your boy Signetti over there, Josh, he's brought over that high powered offense, and it has not taken long for these players to buy into that system. And it's been impressive. So I got the Hoosiers by a lot.
Chris, what you got?
Yeah, I'm in the same vein. They do look good, and I turned on that Indiana game as well, just so I could see Biff Poggi. But hey, Indiana looks damn good. Give me Indiana by 21.
Yeah, their offense is just so good.
And all right, we got our first.
Hold on, real quick. Can you pause the timer real quick?
Yeah,
Chris?
of course.
I've got the Buckeye game on in the background. I'm obviously paying attention to you guys, but I'm also kind of gives me a chance to rewatch the game. The weak side run to Judkins near the goal line was arguably one of the dumbest plays all day. I just want to throw that out there. I just saw it and I'm watching it. I'm like, oh yeah, that play was dumb.
Why talking about the short side of the field?
Yes. Why they continue to run to the short side in the red zone? I don't get. All right, I'm sorry.
Ryan Day must have called that one.
Yeah,
Ryan
that's my fault. Sorry. go back.
So we're gonna this is gonna be the first one this is gonna be the first one we disagree about. I really had to mull this one over. Both Maryland and Indiana have really looked good this year. Other than Maryland's weird collapse against Michigan State, they've put up a ton of points and they've not been bad. Remember, we talked about Virginia last week and Maryland put a stomping on them. Maryland pretty much had a virtual bye week last week against Villanova. So I'm going to take Maryland. They're getting 7 points. Indiana really hasn't played a whole lot other than that UCLA game where I thought that UCLA was going to put it to them. Charlotte's not good. Charlotte's a bad team. Biff Poggi's not a good coach. So I am gonna take Maryland. Next game, Nebraska travels to Purdue, and Nebraska is favored by 10 points. Chris, what you got?
Nebraska shakes off that funk of that overtime defeat against Illinois. They'll win. They'll win by give me Nebraska by 14. Give me Nebraska in Purdue by 14.
West Lafayette is where they're at. I forgot. I threw the intro. Just want to I just remember. All right, Mike, what you got?
I think we all saw what Dylan Raiola was last week against Illinois. I think he's good. I don't think he's great. However, Purdue is really, really bad. Like really, really bad. I think Nebraska covers. I don't think by much, but I'm going to take Nebraska here.
I'm with you guys. I don't think Nebraska's necessarily bad. I don't think Dylan Raiola is necessarily bad. I definitely don't think he's God, right? He's closer to average than I thought. Kind of like what I was talking with Max Brosmer.
He's a freshman with 4 starts under his belt. Give him some time. Come on.
Yeah, for sure. It's not against
I think that's the problem. Everyone's like, oh, next Patrick Mahomes. Like, come on.
Yeah, I think Illinois is tougher than I initially thought. And Mike, you were actually the only person that was on Illinois last week, so big shout out to you for that. But yeah, I'm also gonna ride with Nebraska here. Purdue's bad. Purdue was really rough against Oregon State last week, and you're talking to someone who really thought that Purdue was decent. They're not. They're not. They got worked by an Oregon State team who's not very good. So let's ride with Nebraska. Next game, Wisconsin is traveling out to Los Angeles to take on the beaten up USC Trojans, who are favored by 15 points. Mike, what you got?
This one's tough because the Trojans are coming off of a win a loss to Michigan that they looked like a Pac-12 team. I mean, they lost in the trenches. Do they have elite skill players? Sure, but when you don't have time for your quarterback to throw to those elite skill players, that's kind of result that you're going to get. It's going to, obviously Michigan couldn't throw the ball themselves, but they did enough on the ground. They controlled the ball. They ran the clock. They got a win. I think Wisconsin's going to make an effort to try and do that as well. And I'm gonna take the Badgers. I don't think they're gonna win, but I think they cover that 14 though.
Chris, where you at?
USC is going to bounce back, and I think they bounce back. Obviously, all week they're going to hear that they're not tough enough to play in the Big Ten. You remember Wisconsin's missing a quarterback too. Mind you, he might just be a facilitator that hands off the ball and this Wisconsin offense behind this Wisconsin offensive line. But you know what? Give me USC, but they win by 10. I don't think they win by 14.
Oh, yeah. So you're taking the Badgers too then?
Yeah.
So okay, sure.
Yeah, I'm going to take the Badgers.
All right, so we're all in Wisconsin. At 15 points is a lot of points for a USC team that doesn't look very good. They got owned by a team that, you guys called not very good on this show, right? So we got to, and they've only played Utah State, and they beat a team that wasn't very good. So Wisconsin's also coming off of a bye. Wisconsin's got a whole week to get this new quarterback prepped. Tyler Van Dyke, he wasn't very good to begin with, it looks like, even though I touted him all preseason. It looks like he was not very good anyways. So yeah, you got a whole week to prepare and you're getting 15 points. Give me that Wisconsin. All right, next game. The Illinois Fighting Illini travel to Happy Valley to take on Penn State in a primetime game, and Penn State is favored by 17.5. Mike, what you got? Who did I go with last? Who started off last week? Yeah, Mike.
Yeah, it's me. Riding with the Illini again, man. I was, I thought that, coming into the season, that Brett Bielema had the makings of the kind of team that he wants and what he's looking for. And I think this is year 3 for him, and he's won in the past and won a lot at Wisconsin. And to kind of write him off, and in this game, I'm looking at, I think that the teams are pretty equal talent-wise. I think Penn State might have, Penn State Penn State does have better skill position players, but I think the Illini are tougher. They play kind of a Michigan brand of football. Obviously, they can pass the ball a little bit more, but their brand of football is very similar to that. I think Penn State struggles with that. I'm going to take the Illini. And you know what? I'm actually going to take them outright.
Oh, big money line play. Big money line play. Chris, what you got?
I think they win.
Hey, I'm with you. Bielema's got these boys on an all-time high right now. Yes, Penn State has better skill players all around. I'm going to take the Illini as well. I still think Penn State wins, but I don't think they win by 17.5.
All right, I'm going to disagree with you guys. I think Penn State runs them out of the house. Dude, you're talking about a night game in Happy Valley? Yeah, Brett Bielema is doing a great job.
Is this the whiteout this week?
I don't know. It doesn't matter to me. It doesn't matter. It might be, but I agree with you guys. Brett Bielema is doing a great job. This Illinois team is tough. This Penn State team is a playoff caliber, national championship caliber team. They just put over 600 yards of offense on the board. I know it's Kent State, but that still counts. They got Drew Aller, Nick Singleton. Dude, you're talking about like the trenches. Yeah, Illinois got a very tough offensive line. Penn State has Abdul Carter and Dennis Smith.
Yeah.
What do we, I got nothing. I'm going with Penn State, bro. I think that they run them out. Plus, Illinois coming off of a very, very hard fought win against Nebraska. They're exhausted. They're beaten up. Penn State got a glorified bye week.
Yeah, I can see that. I get that. Also, I checked real quick. It is an unofficial whiteout, so it's not their actual whiteout.
Oh. All right, next and last game, Oregon travels to LA to take on UCLA. We got.
Sure, you guys don't know too much about UCLA, but our football program. But we're in LA.
And Oregon is favored by 24 points.
They're in LA.
Chris, where you at?
Give me Oregon by 28 points at least.
Yeah,
they're going to figure it out eventually.
Is that because You believe they can do this, or is that because you're wishing it into the atmosphere because you're a fantasy team? I want to make sure
a little
that
bit of both, honestly. A little bit of both.
There it is. Knew that was coming.
Mike,
Yeah.
where you at?
Coming. I'm gonna keep it short and sweet. I think Oregon works arguably the worst team in the Big Ten. I'd take them at 35.
Yeah, man. I UCLA is the worst team in the Big. But honestly, UCLA looked really good last week against LSU, and I can't figure out if it's because LSU sucks. I can't figure out, but they did. They looked competent. They really, truly did, which makes me scared of Indiana. Weird. That game was so weird. But Oregon's coming off a bye. Oregon's far better. Oregon stand on the West Coast. These are not unfamiliar new opponents. They played each other in the Pac-12. Let's ride with Oregon, boys. All three of us. All right, that's it. That's your Big Ten rundown.
Let's go.
That is the Big Ten rundown, gentlemen. I have
we
a Buckeye. Go ahead.
We agreed a lot. So last week was a lot of differentiating. Like you guys picked Rutgers. I'm the only idiot that picked Virginia Tech. Mike was the only one that rightly picked Illinois. I was the only one that picked Penn State, Michigan. Chris, you picked Oregon State. We had a lot of differentiating stuff last week. This week, there's not a lot of differences, boys. There's one game. There's two games where we differentiate. So this will be interesting.
Yeah. I do have a Buckeye question of the week, but I can't hold that for next week. I know I don't want to keep Mike if he's got to go.
No, he's little man has officially gone down. He cried himself to sleep. It only took an hour and a half.
Hey, that's a win. 9 months, that's a win.
Dude, an hour and a half is so long. No.
Yeah. No, I gotcha.
It's so long. I think that's the like the previous high was like 40 minutes that he cried before he went to sleep.
I don't miss those.
I do not know what's going on. My wife and I are trying to figure it out. We're like, what the hell's going on? But he is asleep, so you can go ahead with the question.
Okay, Buckeye question of the week, gentlemen. If you look here, I've got the current, as of today, the AP top 25. All right, and my question of the week is: number 3, Ohio State arguably has the weakest schedule of any team in the top 25 through 4 weeks. Gentlemen, does this help or hurt the Buckeyes in the long run?
Mike, you want to take this one first?
Yeah, I'll go ahead first. I don't care. I could care less. This is the 12-team college football playoff era. It does not matter. It really doesn't.
Again, I put these rankings up more just to piss you off than anything.
I mean, when you look at, so they still have Michigan. They still have Oregon. And that is it, right? Like, those are the big games.
Well, let me ask you this as well. Yep,
yeah, but like,
Indiana,
I guess, yeah.
Bro, you're throwing off Penn State, and that's a bad idea. I get it a little bit.
Like, they just it's a rivalry. It's not a rivalry. We kick their ass every year. Like, I don't really see them as a threat, to be honest with you.
Let me ask you.
Like, when we ranked the big three, it was always either Michigan, Oregon, and then Penn State. And I think for me, Penn State is like significantly lower. I
never had Michigan in the big three. Never. The only reason I have Michigan as a tough battle is because Michigan.
I mean, toughest games. I meant toughest games.
Yeah.
Like for all on the season, right?
So
like they're in like the big three that they have to win.
Let me ask you this. So I understand why your thought process is the way it is about Penn State, but you sound a little bit like a Michigan fan when they talk about Ohio State, right? Like, we got him. I think a lot of that's because James Franklin is an idiot, right? And I get that.
Sure, and he's still there.
I get that. But do you agree that they have the same talent tier as Ohio State? Maybe not because Ohio State's so freakishly good this year. But Penn State has
22. They're 22. They're first teamers, yes. But when you get into the too deep, no.
Okay, that's fine.
You could say that about a lot of teams, but you could say that about a lot of teams, though. A lot of teams. I think there's a reason. There's a reason. Who?
You say you think there's a lot of teams that have the same?
No, I meant like across the country, right? Like, like there's only, in my eyes, there's only like 3 or 4 teams that the too deep would match up with Ohio State's too deep. Like it's like when you're looking at Texas, Georgia, and probably Alabama. I think Tennessee's like their ones are damn good, like really, really good. We don't know about their twos. What if Nico gets hurt? Right? He's been
That's
so
fair.
good. But they don't.
That's
I don't know if they have anybody behind him. Right.
That's fair. I'll give you that. I'll give you that. But with that said, too, Ohio
Like
State
Old Miss
is not
too. Like
impenetrable.
Old Miss, they suffer some injuries to some of their best players, and they might end up 8-4. Right.
I don't,
Like,
but clearly Ohio State's not impenetrable either, right? We saw Tyler
No.
Williams go out and the defensive line got pushed around, right? If Cody Simon gets out and we have a linebacker crew of Sonny Styles and CJ Hicks, we're in trouble. no matter
Well,
who-
I really hope they're not picking CJ Hicks in that
No.
situation. We're talking
exactly.
About,
No,
that should be an Arvell. That should be an easy Arvell Reese. You're right.
by the way, Gabe Howard didn't get one single snap. I don't know why.
Oh,
but
he didn't.
Whatever.
I didn't notice
Ooh.
that. Oh
No.
man,
No.
that is disappointing because he looked good the game before.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. It's pretty awful. But anyways, yeah, to answer your question, I think it helps Ohio State. Look at Michigan. They play nobody.
Mhm.
They play nobody. Dude, these are 18-year-old kids, dude. You play your 4 shitty games, get their confidence up. We got Will Howard on the press table making dick jokes, okay?
You
This
mean
team-
last year? You mean Michigan last year?
Yeah. I just won the national championship. Yeah.
Okay.
You don't need there's no fucking point in playing a team like Virginia Tech or Oklahoma. There's no fucking point. All you do is potentially hurt the confidence of your guys, and you're going to play those tough teams later on. There's no point. I used to be a guy that thought, well, you want to get a tough one immediately to figure out how tough your team is. Fuck that. That doesn't do any good. It doesn't do any good. So no, I think it helps them immeasurably.
Okay. Well, again, one more. Let me ask you this: looking at these 24 other teams, do you see anybody in the other 24 that might have had my only one I'm thinking maybe Ole Miss, but they had Wake Forest. I mean, I'm not going to sit here and tout Wake Forest. Other than Wake Forest, all their games were pretty cupcake as well.
Yeah.
I can't see another. Everybody's played somebody that's.
You're asking if Ohio State has the worst schedule of the teams here?
Of these first 4 weeks.
Undefeated. Yes. I'd say undefeated teams. Yeah. I'd say they have their strength of schedule is probably the worst out of the, the top, 11.
Ole Miss's schedule's ass. I'll take Ohio. I think Ohio State's Wait, you can't tell me Wake Forest is that much better than a team like Marshall. Ole Miss's schedule's ass. It may not be worse, but it's in the same tier.
Okay.
You know what I mean? I don't. If an Ole Miss fan wanted to argue our schedule's way better, I'd be like, dude, really? You really want to do this? Why do we want to do this?
Why do we want to do this?
You know what I mean? Okay. Every other team, yeah, they play somebody, but
what has their schedule been like? Let's take a look.
Cupcake, Wake Forest.
Yeah, they played Furman, who doesn't have the same amount of scholarship.
Middle Tennessee, Georgia State, and Wake Forest. Yeah.
Okay.
They don't have an argument.
No,
they don't.
No, I don't think Oregon has had the toughest.
But on the internet, they think they do. They're comparing their current running back to Judkins right now.
Oh yeah.
And I don't know if you guys have seen. I don't know if you guys seen that. Like it's. How are you? You're comparing apples and oranges here. Judkins plays 3 games. They've played 4. So like obviously his stats might look better because he's had more opportunities
against shittier teams.
But
why would you? That's not even a good thing. Stats mean nothing in college football. Why would you want, the best stat is when you sit the fucking bench. The best stat is when your backup goes in. Like, it doesn't make any sense. Oregon's had a pretty cupcake schedule too. They've played Oregon State, who blows. But, it's a Civil War, so I try to give it some credence.
Mm-hmm.
But other than that, Missouri's schedule blows too. They played Boston College, who no one thought was good 6 months ago.
True.
That's it. And they almost lost.
True. Yeah, I'll give you that. I'll tell you what else does blow. The fact that Josh is now pulled out for over 100-point lead from second place now. And somehow he just knew in the 8th round that Ty Felton was going to be the leading receiver in fantasy points for 3 out of the first 4 weeks.
Unbelievable.
Hey, we talked about it. Maryland. He fell to the 8th round because Maryland had a weird receiving core. They lost Little Tua was gone. So there was some quarterback controversy. We all thought that the scrambling quarterback was going to be the one that gets it. So that means less balls in the air. And they have Prather, who's also a very talented wide receiver. So who would have guessed that Felton was going to be the guy? I rolled the dice. Turned out, snake eyes or whatever the good dice is. I don't fucking know.
7
Don't
or 11.
So yeah, whatever. So yeah, okay.
Only sports gambling in
Whatever.
your life.
We play
Yeah.
blackjack. I got a 21, baby. So there we go. So
there you go. Ace
look at
King. Let's go.
Caleb Johnson had the big game though. 40
Yeah.
fucking points. My
Oh.
God.
And you saw the press conference as soon as he got interviewed on the field. It's like, hey, we got a bye week, but it's on to Ohio State. I said, oh, okay.
Not worried about that.
Not worried
Don't
about
worry
that.
about that.
Pretty one-dimensional.
Yeah, they can run the ball.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right,
Oh.
gentlemen. Anything else we gotta say for today?
Nothing from here.
All right, Josh. Where can we find your stuff?
You can follow me on X at Josh Keatley 16. I just realized I didn't share this at all.
Shoot.
I completely forgot to. So I apologize. We'll get better thing. I apologize, Chris. I know you specifically reminded me to do that before the show, and I did not. I completely forgot. So here we are. But yeah, follow me on X, Josh Keatley 16. Follow my work at Buckeyes Wire, all that good stuff.
Chris?
Yeah, hey, I'm on Twitter now, and it's a wild, wonderful place. You can follow me if you want to. I don't tweet. I just look at
I don't.
other people. I look at other people that are just as outraged or confused as I am on Saturday afternoons, and that's about it.
You can follow me on X at Mike F. Jen. It's right on your screen. You can read my stuff at Fighting Irish Wire. I don't always talk about Notre Dame. They give us a little leeway. We can talk about national stories as well. So I do occasionally talk about some national stories. We had one today on Reggie Bush deciding to sue the NCAA for back pay NIL money.
Saw that.
Which I don't know if he has much of a case.
I don't think he does either. I don't know why he wants to do this, dude. You just got your Heisman.
Maybe he's trying to stick it to him for taking away his Heisman and then giving it back to him.
That's not actually the NCAA, right? That's the Heisman committee.
Well, maybe. I mean, yeah. I don't know. Maybe I don't know. I just don't. It just doesn't. It just like the whole the whole situation just doesn't make sense.
Yeah. Well, he did date a Kardashian. So he loves drama.
He did. But yeah, you could Fighting Irish Wire is where you can find that stuff. And that's it for us this week. We appreciate you listening and taking the time. Please get to our YouTube, like, follow, subscribe, share all this stuff on the social media platforms that you are on. And let's kick some Spartan ass this week. Go Bucks.
Go Bucks.